Okay, all right, let's do this, everybody. It is the Ask Me Anything for Thursday, June 13th, 2024. Okay, all right, let's do this. Got some really good questions and comments, as always, from the private Facebook group as well as the squads feature in BTWB. So we'll just go ahead and dive right in. And there's some actual strength and conditioning questions. And then at the end, there's questions unrelated to fitness. So I'll save those for the end. Let's see. Melanie, how are you? Yeah, Linchpin keeping you company at work. Fantastic. Oh, that reminds me. So I just did an interview with Melanie that posted. So I was doing member interviews regularly, and then things get hectic, fall off the track. Didn't do it for a while, a long time. Back at it again. If you are a Linchpin member and you want to throw your hat in the ring for an interview, just email me at info@crossfitlinchpin.com. I'll get you on the list. And then I made a new playlist on the CrossFit Linchpin YouTube channel that you can find all the member interviews. And I think that playlist is just called Member Interviews or Linchpin Member Interviews or something like that. Okay, let's dive right in. First one from Natalie T. Modifications for a bicep/shoulder injury. No pulling or hanging allowed. Not even the Echo bike. Yikes. Okay. So, Natalie, first of all, I'm sorry to hear that. Second of all, make smart decisions. Third of all, don't be in a rush to come back, right? This is a long-term game. And whatever it feels like, if you got to modify your training, whether it's for 2 weeks or 2 months, and it feels like the end of the world, but it's not. Be smart, don't rush back, and then we'd rather have you come back and be 100% for the rest of your life than rush back and be 75% for the rest of your life. So that's my number one thing there. This is from somebody I've had my fair share of injuries, and shockingly, nothing fitness related or working out caused it. Motorcycle wrecks, military accidents, separated my AC joint horrifically on a motorcycle wreck. My arm was in a sling forever and ever, immobilized. And then when I was out of the sling, I could barely use it. That was from a motorcycle wreck. I obviously just had a total hip replacement like 6 or 7 months ago from a military accident that caught up with me. And so, that was a very humbling road to recovery, of which I'm still on to some degree, and I didn't rush it, and things are going great. So same with you, Natalie, don't rush it. But what I would recommend is listen to Varied Not Random podcast or YouTube video. It's episode number 5, Varied Not Random number 5. And that is entitled Working Out with an Injury. And I think you'll find that very useful. Okay, from Mark S. Coach, I think I remember you saying that you got an adjustable bench for bench press. How have you been liking it, and how have you incorporated it into your workouts? Please feel free to use as much hyperbole as possible. I plan on using this as an excuse to get an adjustable bench. So you're absolutely right. I was chatting about getting an adjustable bench for a while, and that's because for me personally, again, motorcycle wrecks and military accidents, my shoulders are so terrible that I really can't get my arms over my head ever in like a safe position. I have to like severely overarch, severely compromise my midline integrity in my spine to get a barbell overhead. And that's just dumb. And so I modify a ton of overhead work to pressing in other directions. Dumbbell bench press, regular bench press, dips, push-ups, like you name it. And so I can't get my arms directly over my head, but I could do like a 45, like an incline bench press. That would probably be a pretty good modification for, some overhead pressing. And so I have a flat bench in my garage gym, but it doesn't adjust, just a flat bench. I looked into getting an adjustable bench. Now there's 2 words to describe me. One is polite, one is impolite. Polite would be to call me frugal. Impolite would be to call me cheap, but I'm potentially both. I just don't like spending money. And so I looked at an adjustable bench and I really wanted one. But I don't want to buy cheap, buy twice. I understand that too. I want to if I'm going to buy an adjustable bench, I want to buy something that's relatively bomb proof and I'll give it to my grandkids so that it lasts. An adjustable bench was so expensive. I couldn't pull the trigger on it. It was just, I was on the website, just looking at the price. Should I do this? I don't know. It's just so expensive. Do I really need to incline bench that much? And I never pulled the trigger on it. So I don't have an incline bench to this day. I would certainly use it if I had one. So, Mark, maybe you have motivated me once again to consider dropping that coin on the incline bench. But I think it's a great piece of kit, either just because people love benching and it's fun, or if you're in a situation like myself for pressing overhead, an incline bench can be a really good option for that. Okay, let me know if you get one, by the way. Corey C. I like this question, Corey, by the way. How should we scale or adjust if our clock is the limiting factor? I mean this for workouts like Tabatas or the Chief, for example. We're basically not having access to resetting the clock. I work out on my lunch break at work, and usually my phone and during workouts like that, it's difficult to measure the time exactly. So I was wondering, should I approach the workouts differently or just log my times with a grain of salt? I like that question. That's a real world question, right? Now, Mark chimed in that he thought an app called Smart Wad Timer is great, and they have a free version. And people are saying that yes, that might work, but usually after a while, you have to like the free goes away and you have to pay for something. And so I don't know if you know of a good free option, drop it in the comments. But getting back to your question, Corey, so what I could do is let's say on something like the Chief, if you could do this, I would set my phone, my iPhone or whatever phone you have, lean it against something, make sure that once I turn it on, the screen's not going to turn off, like it's going to stay on, and then I would just start the timer. Let's take the Chief for example, and I would just know that I'd write it down on a piece of paper or something so I could know that at 3 minutes as I'm going to work out. I'm going to rest until the clock says 4 minutes. When it says 4 minutes, the second 3 minute round begins. I'm going to work out from 4 minutes to 7 minutes. I'm going to rest from minute 7 to 8. I'm going to work out from minute 8 to 11. Like I just lay that out. So I'm just looking at it, looking the clock's continuously running. And I just work out with the clock my phone leaning against the wall. And, that's better than nothing. And I'm not resetting it. I'm just letting it go. And I've done that same thing for Tabata intervals as well. I mean, way back in the day, when CrossFit was in its very early infancy stages, there was no apps that would give you interval timers for Tabatas and things like that. It just didn't exist. And so largely I would do even what you're saying right there for Tabata interval, which you're certainly looking at your phone a lot because it's 20 seconds of work, 10 seconds of rest, 20 seconds of work, 10 seconds of rest for 4 minutes. And so, I would just do that as well. So I do see somebody saying that the Smart Wad is free and works well. So maybe it is free. We'll see. Oh, maybe there is a fee that went up. Okay, there might be a fee. I'm not sure about that one. People are posting here in the comments on YouTube. But I will also say, I personally don't mind on days like that being a bit more sloppy with the timing of the intervals and sloppy with my recording of my performance. Okay, now that would just hurt data purists to their soul, right? Because maybe, I don't know, for the Chief, I worked out a bit longer than 3 minutes, to finish the round that I was in, or I rested a bit longer, a bit short. Like it's not perfect, but my care is not perfection. My care is working out during my lunch break at work before I have to return to my job to pay my bills. And I'm going to do whatever in the heck I have to in that situation to approximate the workout as close as I can. And it's going to be all good. That would be my primary concern. And so I would even say, if maybe you've done the Chief once or twice before and you have a rough idea of how many rounds you do during each 3 minute window, let's say that you do 3 rounds of the Chief, 4 rounds of the Chief during that 3 minute window. Okay. Then I would just, for simple math, let's say you do 4 rounds, solid score. I would do 4 rounds of the Chief. Maybe I wouldn't even run my watch, to be honest with you. I would just do 4 rounds of the Chief. Then I would pull out my phone, tap it, look at it for 60 seconds. That's my rest. Put it down, do another 4 rounds of the Chief. Pick up my phone, rest 1 minute, put it down, do another 4 rounds of the Chief. And I would do that for 5 cycles, and that would replicate the Chief. So that would be totally fine. Or if you've done something like a Tabata workout enough times to know roughly what you hold for those intervals. Maybe for the air squats, again, I'm just throwing numbers out there. Maybe you hold 15, solid score. Maybe you do, 15 air squats, 10 seconds rest. 15 air squats, 10 seconds rest. You do that 8 times. There's your air squat interval. Push-ups are miserably hard for everybody. Most people hold somewhere between 5 and 10 push-ups, whatever your number is. You do that many push-ups, rest 10 seconds. Do that many push-ups, rest 10 seconds. You do that 8 times, that's your push-up to bot interval, and then that's loosey-goosey. That's not precise, blah, blah, blah. Again, the data purists will have a mild heart attack, but that's going to get you fit and that's going to drive the needle forward. So that would be my recommendation for just leaning your phone against the wall. My recommendation for just setting the work in your head and doing it that way. Or if you can, actually, I see people going back and forth in the comments here. I'm not quite sure. Some people are saying that they have paid for the smartwatch timer, and other people are saying there is a version that you don't have to pay for. So you very much might be able to find a timer that works well for you. Okay, here we go. Let's see. Into the comments in the BTWB app, the Linchpin squad in the app. All right. These two questions I'm going to tie together. Catherine D asked, have you ever considered or done a Linchpin camp, for example? Personal training weekend, stuff like that, basically get everybody together. And then Kyle A wants to know, have you ever thought about doing a Linchpin Open? Imagine we'd be love going battling against each other virtually. A great way to compete and rally. Just put, Ben Gobert out in France in his own region. So for both of those, yeah, that's certainly, circulated around my mind. It's just another one of those things where there's just time. I mean, that's probably the most honest answer right there. Time, and something like that might potentially occur in the future. We shall see. We have to plan out what it would actually look like. So can't give any promises one way or another. But to answer your question, have I considered it? Yes, I've certainly considered it. And for Kyle, what we're a few months in, it might work really well for the competing, because you mentioned like a Linchpin Open. Well, what you could use, obviously you could use any workout that you want. And again, I recommend people just put, Tempest matches together and have some awesome competitions. And that reminds me that I should probably start doing that because they're super fun, and just throw the codes out there for people to join. But, each month now we're doing one fitness test per month, the Linchpin monthly fitness test. And tomorrow, as a matter of fact, Friday, June 14th, is the Linchpin monthly fitness test for June, and that's Beachbody. And so that's, there's 6 different Linchpin monthly fitness tests, and they'll repeat twice a year. You'll do the one particular test, and then we'll come back around 6 months later. So since those are known, you can count on those every single solitary month, and you know what they are, the schedule's laid out. That might be a great thing to rally around and compete against your friends with, because there's one happening every single solitary month. And so try to beat Ben tomorrow on Beachbody. And Beachbody, what is it? I think it's Linchpin Conversations 465. It's about the monthly fitness test and explains them all. It's a full podcast on that. And then in the show notes, I laid out all 6 tests. So you can see what they are, just written out. And obviously for each one of those tests, there's going to be a wild card version, a scaled version, a dumbbell version. So, it doesn't matter if you look at a test, you're like, that's a bit too aggressive for me. I can't do that. No worries. Like, there's one of the options we'll provide that day that will meet you where you're at for your fitness needs. Because tomorrow, for example, on Beachbody, it's in a 10-minute window. Part 1, it's an ascending ladder. You do 1 pull-up, 1 dip, 2 pull-ups, 2 dips, 3 pull-ups, 3 dips, and you go as far as you can in 10 minutes. Here's the caveat. The pull-ups and the dips are strict. They are not kipping. Here's caveat number 2. The sets have to be unbroken or you cannot advance to the next set. Now, if you fail a set and you still have time within your 10-minute window, you can rest and try again. But let's say you're on pull-up number 5 and you fail you fail pull-up set number 5. You get to 4, you can't do the 5th one, you hop down. But you still got like 4 minutes left in that 10-minute window. You're not done. You can stand there, rest for a minute, rest for 2 minutes, hop back up, try it again. Let's say you get the 5 pull-ups unbroken, then hop off, start the dip. So you can go as far as you can in that 10-minute window. You just have to make sure each set is unbroken. And again, this is a testing day. Okay, so this is supposed to be challenging. Doesn't matter where you are, you just mark it, you log it, and 6 months from now when it comes back up, you have a no joke comparison as to how the last 6 months of training have been going for you. So that's the first part of Beachbody, because you get a good pump for the beach. It's just 10 minutes, right? 10-minute window. You then rest 10 minutes or less and do death by burpees. You're welcome. Okay, so let's see. Next one is from Stephen K. Every time Randy is programmed, I think of Dan Bailey going unbroken at the 2015 regionals. To me, that ranks up there as one of the most impressive performances in CrossFit. What are some of the results/finishes that stand out as being especially impressive? First of all, Dan Bailey is a vagrant, okay? I'm obviously joking. Dan's awesome. Super, super, super good dude. And I'm very fortunate to call him a friend. Good mug. Yeah, that's a freakish performance that he did without a doubt. And man, that's talk about somebody who that's a wheelhouse workout for Dan right there. Not to take anything away from it. I could see him knocking that out of the park. You know, performances that stick out in my head, shockingly, not many. I don't know why they just don't stick in my head. I've said before, the woman whose name I always forget, who was the final woman where her and Danny Spiegel were competing in the sandbag clean ladder. And I think Spiegel wound up winning. But this other woman who just, I guess if you're judging somebody physically, didn't look like she should be as ferociously strong as she was, but kept lifting a heavier bag and a heavier bag and a heavier bag. And I was like, there's no way she's going to lift the next bag. And then she did. There's no way she's going to lift the next bag. Then she did. Whereas in my head, I'm like, of course Spiegel's going to lift the next bag. I have no doubt about that at all. But this woman is not going to lift the next bag. And then she did. So she is incredible. Oh, thank you, Melanie posted here. Jacqueline Dahlstrom. Yes. She's basically like an ant. Can ants lift like 100 times her body weight? She's like an ant. If she has an athlete shirt, it should be an ant or something like that. So that was incredible. And I would also say anything that Sam Briggs did is potentially one of the most impressive things. Sam Briggs, if I had to say who is my lifetime favorite CrossFit Games athlete, it is Samantha Briggs. Easiest decision of my life. She's awesome. Okay, let's see. All right. From Sanjil. Is there an ideal body weight in CrossFit? While our height remains fixed and unchangeable, we can change our body weight and body composition, muscle to fat ratio. Being on the leaner side provides advantages in gymnastics movements, whereas a heavier build can benefit strength-based exercises, cardio machines, etc. To strike a balance, do you think there's an ideal body weight we should aim for based on our height? Thank you. You know, not knowing exactly how tall you are, I guess your overall question is an ideal body weight in CrossFit. I mean, you could probably make a serious case that the answer is yes to a degree, right? It seems like on the men's side as well, I know better than to talk about a woman's body weight on camera, but on the men's side as well, there is, I feel like there's a lot of male athletes in like the 5'8" to 5'10" height area. And those people range in weight anywhere from like 185 to 200-ish. I think that's probably a really, maybe you could call that optimal if that's just how you were made, height to weight ratio for CrossFit. There are certainly athletes that are shorter and lighter that are phenomenal and athletes that are taller and heavier, all walks of life that crush it. But generally speaking, I think that's probably where most people are. And for yourself, for your question, you're right. Whatever height that you are, if you're excessively lean, however we want to define that, but it sounds like we're defining it from a performance standpoint, right? You're really lean, you're really light, you love pull-ups, you love burpees, you love running, you love all that kind of stuff. You hate the assault bike, you hate heavy back squats and things. Yes, there is a solid case to be made that just if we're analyzing you as a machine, a human machine that needs to perform work, well, we could modify that machine in a way so that it's more well balanced if we're trying to have you do everything. And vice versa, if this machine, the human machine, was too heavy, a monster with the heavy barbells, and just you need a sundial when they go out and run a 5K, yep, we'd want to lean that person down as well. But I would let your individual performance and numbers be your guide. That's the wonderful thing about CrossFit, and doing well-rounded programming. If your programming has like a heavy bias, you might never realize that you're not really optimized. If your program has a gymnastics bias, you might not really realize that you're optimized or not. But if you're doing lightweight, moderate weight, heavyweight, time domains, short to medium to long, and like nothing is off the table, like we're going to do it all, and you've done it for 6 months or a year, you've got probably a really good sense of where your strengths and weaknesses are. BTWB doesn't lie. You can check those things out. And again, I'm not quite sure what your height and weight is, but if you say, you know what, yeah, man, all my lifts are in the 85th percentile and all my runs are in the 45th percentile, or my Cindy score is in the 45th percentile, and my back squat, deadlift, and press are in the 85th percentile, that would be very telling and things like that. And if it was important enough to you, you could choose to modify if needed. And point being, if it was important enough to you, it might not be. Playing with your diet and tweaking your diet, for some people, I should say for most people, I don't think it's that easy. I think it sounds really easy on paper. I'm just going to eat some more calories. I'm going to do a bulk up phase. And then no problem, I'll just shave that excess fat off, lickety split, be lean and ready for the beach again. No problem. That's not how it goes often for a lot of people in reality. It's quite challenging. But if you found yourself on the lighter side, maybe it does make sense to continue on with the training that you're doing and gradually and gently increase your calories in order to try to gain a bit of weight, not do something drastic like drink a gallon of milk a day or something. On the other side of the house, you find yourself carrying around too much baggage. You continue with your workouts, whatnot, and you track your macros and your calories, and you maybe try to put yourself into a minor deficit each day, something which is actually sustainable and not going to cause you to crash and burn, and you go in that direction. So, yeah. Let's see. See, Claudia says Sam Briggs is my favorite too, and I don't get very excited about games athletes. I'm right there with you, 100%. It's just Sam Briggs are just good people. All right, let's see. I've got a couple questions left. Some are not fitness related, so I'm going to circle back to them. One of them is actually from Claudette, and I'll handle the ones that were fitness related. There's only one more fitness related one, right? Where is it? Sorry, I'm scrolling on my phone here. Oh, there's two more. Here we go. From Brandon M. Is Linchpin sufficient training for things like the Open and other competitions? I know it's great for creating a crazy fit person, but in regards to capacity and volume for competitions, should there be additional workouts included? And if so, what? I'm considering being a master's athlete for the record. Awesome question. So you mentioned two things which aren't, one of them is not really a competition, even though it is. Okay, so answer your question first of all. Is Linchpin sufficient training for things like the Open? Yes. Simple answer. Yes, without question. The Open, and if anyone doing CrossFit, I don't care if it's Linchpin or another program, if you're doing well thought out GPP, general physical preparedness, from somebody that you know and trust, and you know that the programming is solid, okay? And you're not avoiding anything, you don't avoid running, you don't avoid gymnastics, you don't lift heavy every day, like you're doing well-rounded GPP, like classic CrossFit style programming. If you're doing that and you're not ready for the open, then the open did something stupid. And it's the open's fault. That is as honest as I can be. Because what the open is supposed to be, yeah, it's a competition because, people will advance, but the open is just CrossFit. And so if you're doing CrossFit, you should be ready to do CrossFit. And the open is one workout a week. And so to be ready for the open, what you need to be ready for is CrossFit, one workout a week. So without question, yes. But yes, it is a competition because the best will advance. Gotcha. So yes, you should be ready for that. Now, we even had what does it go? I always get the season messed up. Is it the Open and then semifinals, then quarterfinals, and then the games, or is it quarterfinals and then semifinals? I think it's semifinals and then quarterfinals. Whatever's the next stage past the Open, where the top whatever percent of the Open advance to the next stage of competition. Again, I think it's the semifinals. We had a ton of people from Linchpin advance to that next one without really trying, I should say, or doing anything else. They just made the cut. And again, because the open was CrossFit, and we're ready to do CrossFit. Open, quarterfinals, then semifinals. Okay, thank you, Melanie. So we had a bunch of people advance to quarterfinals just from doing Linchpin every day. And I believe that because it's CrossFit and we do CrossFit. Now, if you're talking about something a bit more robust in the open, okay, now we finish quarterfinals and we're advancing to semifinals or the games. And your question is, in that sort of a regard, is somebody doing Linchpin every day probably going to advance to that and crush it? I would say most likely not. I would be shocked if somebody did. That's my honest answer because yes, those people are also doing CrossFit and they have to be doing CrossFit, but it is an absolute monumental leap into a different universe. Yes, we're all doing CrossFit, but it is not the same. It's kind of like I drive every day, and the people who race F1 for $50 million a year, they drive every day. We're both drivers. Sure, but not really. The level of training, discipline, strategy, like it's just, again, we're under the same umbrella, but it's not even remotely close. And so at a certain point, if you want to do that, you have to be exposing yourself to volume of training and loadings and whatnot to be ready for what's coming down the pike in those competitions. Because, as I've said before, those competitions are not real life. They are artificially created by human beings to most likely exceed the demands that you would ever face on planet Earth. And so, therefore, you're not training for real life. And you're really not trained to be healthy either, if we're having an honest conversation. You're training for something which is not real life and it's not healthy. At Lynchpin, we train for real life and we try to do it in a healthy manner. And so, by its very nature, it's kind of the antithesis of that. And it is what it is. Like, no judgment. Do what you want to do. My wife was a competitor. I got tons of friends who are competitors. Like, it is what it is. But just go into it with your eyes wide open as to what you're really getting involved in with regards to the commitment, the sacrifice, the training volume, the recovery, what it may or may not do to your body and all that stuff. And I also think, there's some middle ground too. Do you just want to compete in some fun local competitions? Sure, I think you'll be fine. Will you maybe beat somebody who's like some fanatical lunatic who decided to train 3 hours a day and whatever happens to their knees, back, and shoulders in 5 years, screw it, I'm looking to podium this month? You might not beat that person. I don't know if you want to beat that person, quite frankly. That person might beat you on that weekend, but I've got a really good idea. You'll beat them in life in the long run with like avoiding chronic pain. And again, it is what it is. There are certain things in this world that the cost of entry can be rather high. So, and like there are people like the open, getting back to the open's an interesting thing. Now, as time goes by, I won't, out this person during this show right now. I don't think they would care, but I've got several friends as time's gone by, masters athletes, who undoubtedly beat the stuffing out of you every year in the open, crushed you. And right now, later in life, they fear going up a set of stairs because of how their knees feel, because of how their hips feel, because of just all the over the top training they did for years to place well on the leaderboard. That's just the unvarnished, uncomfortable, that's the truth. And they may also say in their same breath, as they're hobbling up the stairs, that they don't regret what they did because they had a blast. And that can also be true. Those two things can coexist at the same time, right? They're both true statements. How they feel now, and they don't regret it. All I'm saying is make the decision with your eyes wide open. So, okay. Let's see. Okay, last question on fitness, and then two kind of fun questions. This question might get me in trouble. It will most certainly get me in trouble with my wife. Let's see. Let's see. Oh, let's see. Claudia says, just to add, I made it to quarterfinals at age 56, and I could have made it to semifinals, but I'm not stupid, so I wouldn't even attempt it. That's amazing. I was doing scaled, kind of for time, and not for time workouts since October with just dumbbells and a rower, no pull up bar. Claudia, that's amazing. That's amazing that you made it to quarterfinals and could have made it to semifinals. Like, that's incredible. Okay, this is from Freddie. This is the question that might get me in trouble with my wife, but here we go. These are the fun ones, right? From Freddie. Curious on your thoughts on exposing yourself to the stress of a workout in weather elements for GPP. I live in the desert and 110-degree days, wow, have started, and I want to get your feedback. All the, and of course, all the caveats of doing what's safe, the disclaimers we need to have on the internet. I'm not giving you advice. I'm not telling you what to do. Don't follow me, blah, blah, blah. I'm going to give you my personal thoughts on this. I'm not telling you what to do. Okay. The obvious and safe explanation is you don't want to make yourself a heat casualty, and vice versa. If you lived in Greenland, you wouldn't want to make yourself hypothermic or whatever it happened to be. So, unfortunately, if that's where you live, Freddie, and you just can't, if you're fortunate enough to have mini split or a little AC unit or 28 fans in your garage and you can suffer midday, you're in the shade, but you got all those fans going, great. If not, it's going to be a 5 a.m. workout for you, before the heat of the day starts, which sounds miserable. That might be just what you have to do, or et cetera, et cetera. So avoiding those elements is probably the overall smart decision for regular people just looking to get fit, fast, and strong, just looking to live a healthy lifestyle. You don't want to just, go and work out in Death Valley, right, in 110 degrees. Okay, there's my caveat. Now, where the trouble comes in. I do my very best to be a nice, sane, rational, level-headed person because it's better for me, it's better for my family, and it's better for everyone that knows and has to interact with me. My former self of, my time in the teams and the SEALs and whatnot, I generally keep that in a little box. I keep it in a little box and I tuck it down away, and I don't open the box too much because it's usually not positive for friends and family and things like that. But when I see this question, the box opens and that old team guy comes out. And I think back, to that job or people who are first responders and, when the balloon goes up or you got to go do something in the real world, doesn't matter what the outside elements are. Hey, so and so emergency happened, so and so whatever, we got to go out, oof, well, you know what, would really love to rescue that person today. Sounds like they're probably going to die and that sucks, but it's really hot out. I don't really like to train in the heat, so I guess we'll just cancel that mission. Um, that's not going to happen. You're going to go out the door and do whatever you got to go do. And the gear that you're going to put on is probably not going to be nice to wear in 110 degrees. You're going to wear it anyway. And the hill you got to go up, or however long it's going to take, is however long it's going to take. And nobody cares. That's kind of there's two parts of Linchpin, right? There's scaling is cool, and there's nobody cares, train harder. And both of those coexist. And so I already gave you my smart answer, right? For most people just looking to be fit. When the old team guy in me pops up, I think that, there's a weird thing that happens in me if I see on the weather that there's like a weather alert. And in 2 days from now, there's going to be record-breaking heat here in the Pacific Northwest and recommend to stay inside, and it's going to be miserable midday. My immediate old team guy response is, sounds like a pretty good time to train. Sounds like a pretty good time to expose myself to something miserable just to know that I still got it or can do it. Or heaven forbid that pops up, that I know what that level of suck feels like, and it won't be a good workout, and I'll go really slow and I'll feel like death. And I'll drink a billion gallons of water, but it will eventually end, and I'll check that off as like, yep, did it. It's cool. Knocked it out. I know that's probably an unwise, unintelligent thing to say, but we're having a real and honest conversation between friends about the two forces that interact in my brain. So I would say, Freddie, it depends. Regular person, regular job, overwhelmingly, you probably don't need to do that, because exposing yourself to that stuff is potentially very unsafe and dangerous. Going, doing extreme activity in 115, 110 degree heat, not wise for most people. Something in me finds something interesting in that. It is what it is. If you are a police officer, first responder, firefighter, military member, I don't think you need to train in that stuff all the time, because if you train in that stuff all the time, you're not going to optimize your fitness because you're just slogging. Every day is a slog. If every day is a slog, you're not optimizing your fitness and you're not advancing. But exposing yourself every now and then to the slog and to the misery intelligently, have a safety net, let somebody know what happens so you don't black out 2 miles away from your house in a run and nobody finds you for 4 hours. Like, be smart, have a safety net, let people know what you're doing. But exposing yourself to that, especially if you are in an occupation that you're going to have to probably go do stuff in the real world 365 days a year in any climate, in any condition, there's value in training in that. So those would be my two. There's a side story to that's inappropriate for the internet. We all meet for coffee one time. Remind me to tell you, it relates to Murph at the games. That'll be the hint for me to remember. Okay, two more non-fitness, or these are not fitness related questions. So if you're just here for the fitness, you can tune out. Here are my two non-fitness related questions that people asked. Three actually non-fitness related. First one's from Claudette. Let's see. I can choose any one of these following options. There's 4 different options, fictitious options, and I can choose one of them. Option one, like wish number 1. You can include any 2 treat foods as part of your normal diet, but they would just be magically converted into the wonderful nutritional value of fruits and vegetables. But you can never have Thanksgiving or Christmas dinner again. On those days, you have to have salads. But on the other days, I can have 2 treat foods every single solitary day, but they would be like magically healthy. That's option number 1. Option number 2, I can have my wife Emily's gymnastics ability and flexibility, but also her dislike for certain movements. Number 3, I can have Tanner's strength, but I always have to train in a helmet. If you don't know what that means, that's definitely an inside joke for Linchpin. Tanner's probably the strongest guy in Linchpin. He trains in a helicopter helmet. Number 4, you can have Ben Gobert's training ability, but never have a rest day. Easiest 4 options in the world. I would take the 2 treats without question. Done. Everybody else can have that training stuff. 2 treats a day for the rest of my life. They give me the nutritional value of vegetables. That is amazing. Okay. If I wasn't programming Linchpin, what would my dream job be? My dream job would probably be, I find like the entire process of commercial real estate at large scale astonishingly fascinating. The entire process. And I'm not like building a house, but I mean like either a subdivision of 100 homes, a 10-story apartment building that has 300 units in it, the acquisition of the land, the negotiation of the deal, the putting together of the financing, the working with the city, the whole, I mean, like commercial real estate, I find fascinating. So it'd probably be something in the whole commercial real estate realm. And then final question from ENT. Whatever happened to the truck burning oil issue? I hope you didn't have to come out of pocket for that. And how is the hip doing? My mom is considering hip replacement. Any advice? So amazing. I must have mentioned that during one of the shows. So I had an F-150 that was like 2 years old and took it in for an oil change. And however many quarts of oil it's supposed to have in it, it was missing an entire quart of oil. An entire quart. Like it's not a little bit. It was burning like a ton of oil. And that thing was always in for a recall, even though it was just 2 years old. Like, I don't know what the deal was. It was miserable. Before that truck, I had a Toyota Tacoma that I kept for like 11 or 12 years. Just old, just couldn't kill it. It was amazing and awesome. And I would still be driving that old Toyota Tacoma to this day. But we had Lane, my daughter, a few years ago. Our family went from 4 members to 5 members. And Toyota Tacoma just didn't quite work. So I sold that truck, got the full size F-150. Full 4 doors and all that worked great for the family. But that thing was just supposedly the best-selling truck in America. I tell you what, I also met more people that had F-150s and had problems with it than any other vehicle that I've had, and I've got to back them up. The thing was just always in the shop. And after that most recent one, I was like, this is ridiculous. And the dealer, I worked out a deal with the dealership to buy it and actually get a decent price on it, which is shocking from the dealership. And so I sold that truck. It's gone. It was like, again, it was like 3 years old. It's ridiculous. And we still had my wife's Tahoe. And then we replaced the F-150. Got a Tesla Model Y. And so it's our first foray into the electric vehicle deal. And so we still got the Tahoe's a larger vehicle. So we get all, 3 kids and the dog. We can take the Tahoe, and that's great. And for most of our running around, which we do a ton of, running our kids around to basketball and sports, we got the Tesla Model Y. I'll tell you what, we've had the Tesla now for, I think, a couple of months. First of all, that Tesla was like $20,000 less than a Ford F-150, which I think most people don't. I didn't realize that when I started researching cars. I think Tesla, they're a super expensive vehicle. Not the case at all. That F-150 MSRP was $20K more than a Tesla. That's ridiculous. So anyway, we got the Tesla, and when I went from my 11 or 12-year-old Toyota Tacoma, which had like no fancy electronics in it whatsoever, to my F-150, it was like I entered the 21st century. Like it was just amazing. The technology advancement, again, so it was more than a decade, was mind-boggling. And now hopping into the Tesla, it makes that F-150 feel like I was riding a dinosaur around prehistoric times. It's crazy, my personal opinion. I wish we had got this thing years and years and years ago. It is absolutely awesome. I have nothing bad to say about it. We're not going to the gas station anymore, which is incredible. We've seen what it did to our electric bill, which obviously our electric bill went up a little bit, but we calculated how much did our electric bill go up versus how much would we have spent on gas doing the amount of driving. And it's like 1/3, right? So if our electric bill went up $100, we would have spent $300 on gas. Like that's the kind of the math difference. Easiest decision in the world. The thing's awesome. So anyway, yeah, that's my 2 cents on that. So, all right, let's see if I missed anything here. Got some activity in the comments this morning. It's a good time. All right. Thanks everybody for being wonderful. Enjoy your rest day, and we'll talk later.